Joining us now, former acting ICE director Tom Homan. Tom, good evening to you. Your reaction to what Rick Scott is saying here, because so many people have called for President Biden to resign over so many different issues, but the border is certainly one of them.
Well, look, I agree with everything he's saying. First of all, I think Mayorkas should be impeached day one if we take back Congress. Mayorkas says, he's violated the oath he took. He's a Homeland, he's a Secretary of Homeland Insecurity. This country's less safe under his leadership. He failed for 16 months straight. Every month's a record-breaking month. And May numbers be coming out in a couple weeks, and it's going to be another record-breaking month. It's going to be over 220,000. Wow. Mayorkas needs to leave because he lied in front of Congress. He committed perjury under oath in front of Congress. So, yeah, this administration hasn't done a single thing today, after 16 months, to secure the border, take any enforcement action. Everything's about catch and release, bringing more people in, process quicker, release quicker, which only feeds the flames.
But now the reports indicate that he's talking about filling some of the gaps on the border wall, replacing some of the gates. Obviously, this is not a project that this administration was supportive of. In fact, they've left millions of dollars of materials unused as well to finish the wall. But some are wondering, is this just, a political stunt ahead of the midterms?
Absolutely. There's an election coming. That's the only reason. Look, again, they're suing to end the Title 42. They're suing to end Remain in Mexico. Every step they've taken is to open this border. So for them to put a few gates in is meaningless. It's not going to make a big difference. And look, just 2 weeks ago, the Secretary made another rule change. He's ignoring what the federal statute says about asylum claims. Now asylum seekers don't have to even go see a judge. They're going to see a CIS employee on the border to make an immediate decision, which is going to be rubber stamped for more asylum claims to come. So as the approvals go up, because right now 90% of Central Americans never get relief because they don't qualify for asylum. But now they're going to turn that number around. More people are going to qualify, which is going to do what? Bring more. This is just another example of Mayorkas just throwing another magnet out to bring more people in to release them.
It's interesting. Earlier, we were talking about President Biden addressing the nation, talking about gun violence in this country. And Congressman Tim Burchett made the point that, unfortunately, some of this is going unchecked in a way because the more the violence goes on, then the more they could fight for stricter gun laws, the more they can chip away at the Second Amendment. I look at the border in some ways the same way as well. I mean, you essentially see what's happening down there. It's the exploitation. It's a humanitarian crisis to essentially further the Democrats' agenda. What say you?
And where's all the Democrats? Where's AOC? Where's Congressman Castro that ran down to the border under the Trump administration when a child died? More migrants have died under the first year of Joe Biden's presidency on U.S. soil than any time in my 35-year career. When he opened that border up, the most vulnerable people in the world put themselves in the hands of criminal cartels. More migrants have died this year than any year in my 35 years. Over 100,000 Americans have died from opioid overdoses. And 95% of the opioids come across the southwest border because the Border Patrol's not on the line. They're taking care of families. So where are all the Democrats that screamed and yelled about the humanity of the Trump administration's policies? Nothing's more inhumane than record number of migrants dying on U.S. soil and record number of Americans dying because of open borders. President Trump's policies, call them what you want. When we secure the border at the highest level in 35 years, how many women didn't get sexually assaulted? How many children didn't die? How many Americans didn't die of fentanyl overdoses? President Trump's policies saved lives. They're much more humane than what we currently have under the Biden administration.
You touched on the opioids. You just mentioned the fentanyl, which so many people are passionate about right now because so many people across this country are dying when they take pills or other substances that are unknowingly laced with fentanyl, Tom. It's just tragic when you think about it. And then you think about the cartels that are making billions of dollars off of essentially the backs of Americans.
And that's why the crime rate in Mexico, the violence in Mexico is at an all-time high right now. The cartels are making more money than they've ever made. They're smuggling people, they're trafficking in women and children, they're moving unprecedented amounts of opioids into the United States. So the cartels are fighting each other for plaza control because they're making more money than ever. So exactly right. These policies of the Biden administration has not only resulted in American deaths and migrant deaths, but a lot of deaths in Mexico, a lot of deaths of migrants in the Darien Gap coming up from all over the world. And we're not even talking about the threat of national security threats that have crossed this border. They've arrested 42. There's 750,000 gotaways. So how many of that 750,000 that got into the country and escaped, how many of them on the terrorist watch list?
Yeah, the numbers are just on pace to hit new records, and we saw it happen last year. We're set to do it again this year. So many people concerned about this, and final point I'll make, of course, Vice President Kamala Harris, the border czar, still hasn't taken this issue on in a real way. Tom Homan, great to see you. Thank you, sir.